Welcome back to our discussions on the Brahms opus 122 chorale preludes. And today we're looking at the short and simple setting of O wie selig, seid, doch, Frommen. And for this we've returned yet again to Neustrelitz to look at the work on what we have previously referred to as the perfect Brahms organ, which was a large organ built at almost exactly the same time as Brahms wrote these pieces. The hymn itself says, "How blessed are the dead who have gone to a better place where they will be comforted." Brahms indicates molto moderato for this piece. Other than the adagio in Herzliebster Jesu, this is the only tempo marking in the opus 122 chorale preludes, and it's probably a necessary corrective because it's rather tempting to hurry those quavers in order to make the chorale melody flow better, but to do so would hide some of the details that we want to bring out. The last few bars carry the marking pedal in brackets. And I'm pretty sure that what Brahms has in mind here is a so-called Anhang pedal, that is to say, a pedal which is simply coupled to the manual and has no independent stops of its own right. Brahms had an instrument with this kind of pedal board, which he used to practice on in a music shop. And I think that he's only indicated it for sheer convenience, because otherwise we're left with rather a wide gap in the left hand, which can be a struggle to reach. So I think probably, assuming we do use a pedal there, which, as Brahms indicates, is optional, it shouldn't have independent stops on it, certainly not a 16-foot stop. This piece is also unique among Brahms's organ works in including the direction crescendo. The crescendo obviously requires a swell box, which, as we've said before, was a rarity in 19th century German organs. Only the largest and most modern organs would have had such a thing. Now, a swell box as such was invented a long time earlier, a century and a half earlier in England, but it never really gained popularity in Germany until the end of the 19th century. Even those organs which did have a swell box, a swell pedal, would only have had quiet and gentle stops in that particular division. So here in Neustrelitz, which, as we've said before, had the most modern, the most advanced, one of the largest instruments built within Brahms's lifetime, even here the swell division, which is one of the larger swell divisions in 19th century Germany, has, other than a 16-foot lieblich gedacht and a quiet 4-foot stop, it has only 8-foot gentle stops. That is to say, flutes and a Geigen principal, which is quite quiet, and an oboe. Even full swell, all the swell stops out, only matches in volume, give or take, the 8-foot principal and a 4-foot flute on the Hauptwerk. So the swell division is much quieter and is, in any event, nothing like the kind of big, growly, full swell effect that we associate with the later Romantic organ, the sort of 20th century Romantic organ. So the forte to which this piece is crescendoing can only be an 8-foot and a 4-foot stop at the most, and not particularly loud or brash. I'm aware that in this Brahms series I've been going on at rather excessive length about the organs themselves, the kind of organ that Brahms would have been familiar with or would have used. And there is a reason why I've done this. It's because, as I've said elsewhere, we tend to overlook the 19th century German organ as a genre in its own right, as a type of instrument which is very different from the kind of Romantic organ that we associate with big churches. And so I hope you'll forgive me for having one last rant about this. Let's look at this organ where we are today. It has, as we've said, 3 manuals, quite a lot of stops. It has a balanced swell pedal, which was a very new and rare thing, but even here the swell pedal is put at the right-hand corner, which is where a trigger swell pedal would traditionally have been. There is only the most rudimentary of registration aids, that is to say a button for each division, putting on the tutti for that division. There is a classical layout of a Hauptwerk and an Oberwerk. The action is mechanical. All the things are those which we associate more with the organs of an earlier epoch. It is at the same time very different from a Baroque organ, but it is 100% different also from the 20th century Romantic organ. Incidentally, I can't resist a slightly irrelevant comment, nothing whatsoever to do with the music. And that is, I wonder whether any of the sharp-eyed viewers have noticed the coats of arms on the top of this organ, particularly the one on the right, which is the British royal coat of arms, not for Queen Victoria, who had been on the throne for 60 years when this organ was built, but for George III, which features the Habsburg crest in the centre. Why on earth, we might say, is the coat of arms of George III on this organ? Well, the reason is that George III was married to Queen Charlotte, who came from the ducal family of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, whose main palace was here in Neustrelitz. Now, whether the royal family put any money into the building of this organ and so got the crest there, or whether the family of Mecklenburg-Strelitz was just trying to advertise their connections to the British royal family, I don't know. But there it is. So for this piece, I'm using all the flute stops on the swell division, that is to say 8 and 4 foot, and not the 16 foot and not the oboe.